Chapter 10. The king levied a tax upon his kingdom both by land and sea. As for his strength and valor, and the wealth and glory of his kingdom, behold, they are written in the book of the Persians and Medes for a memorial. Mordecai was viceroy to King Ahasuerus, and was a great man in the kingdom, honored by the Jews, and lived his life loved by all his nation. Mordecai said, These things have come from God. For I remember the dream which I had concerning these matters, for not one detail of them has failed. Here was the little spring which became a river, and there was light, and the sun, and much water. The river is Esther, whom the king married and made queen. The two serpents are Haman and me. The nations are those which combine to destroy the name of the Jews. But as for my nation, this is Israel, even those who cried to God and were delivered. For the Lord delivered his people. The Lord rescued us out of all these calamities, and God worked such signs and great wonders as have not been done among the nations. Therefore he ordained 2 lots, one for the people of God, and one for all the other nations. And these 2 lots came for an appointed season, and for a day of judgment, before God, and for all the nations. God remembered his people and vindicated his inheritance. They shall observe these days in the month Adar, on the 14th and on the 15th day of the month, with an assembly, joy, and gladness before God throughout the generations forever among his people Israel. In the 4th year of the reign of Ptolemus and Cleopatra the Citius, who said he was a priest and Levite, and Ptolemus his son brought this letter of Purim, which they said was authentic, and that Lysimachus the son of Ptolemus, who was in Jerusalem, had interpreted. The book of Job, chapter 1. There was a man in the land of Uz, whose name was Job. That man was blameless and upright, and one who feared God and turned away from evil. There were born to him 7 sons and 3 daughters. His possessions also were 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and a very great household, so that this man was the greatest of all the children of the East. His sons went and held a feast in the house of each one on his birthday. And they sent and called for their 3 sisters to eat and to drink with them. It was so, when the days of their feasting had run their course, that Job sent and sanctified them, and rose up early in the morning, and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, It may be that my sons have sinned, and renounced God in their hearts. Job did so continually. Now on the day when God's sons came to present themselves before Yahweh, Satan also came among them. Yahweh said to Satan, Where have you come from? Then Satan answered Yahweh and said, From going back and forth in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. Yahweh said to Satan, Have you considered my servant Job? For there is no one like him in the earth, a blameless and an upright man, one who fears God and turns away from evil. Then Satan answered Yahweh and said, Does Job fear God for nothing? Haven't you made a hedge around him, and around his house, and around all that he has, on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. But stretch out your hand now, and touch all that he has, and he will renounce you to your face. Yahweh said to Satan, Behold, all that he has is in your power. Only on himself don't stretch out your hand. So Satan went out from the presence of Yahweh. It fell on a day when his sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, that a messenger came to Job and said, The oxen were plowing, and the donkeys feeding beside them, and the Sabeans attacked and took them away. Yes, they have killed the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another also came and said, The fire of God has fallen from the sky, and has burned up the sheep and the servants, and consumed them, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another also came and said, The Chaldeans made 3 bands, and swept down on the camels, and have taken them away, yes, and killed the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, there came also another, and said, Your sons and your daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness, and struck the 4 corners of the house, and it fell on the young men, and they are dead. I alone have escaped to tell you. Then Job arose, and tore his robe, and shaved his head, and fell down on the ground, and worshipped. He said, Naked I came out of my mother's womb, and naked will I return there. Yahweh gave, and Yahweh has taken away. Blessed be Yahweh's name. In all this, Job didn't sin, nor charge God with wrongdoing. Job chapter 2. Again, on the day when God's sons came to present themselves before Yahweh, Satan came also among them to present himself before Yahweh. Yahweh said to Satan, Where have you come from? Satan answered Yahweh and said, From going back and forth in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. Yahweh said to Satan, Have you considered my servant Job? For there is no one like him in the earth, a blameless and an upright man, one who fears God and turns away from evil. He still maintains his integrity, although you incited me against him to ruin him without cause. Satan answered Yahweh and said, Skin for skin. Yes, all that a man has he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand now, and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will renounce you to your face. Yahweh said to Satan, Behold, he is in your hand. only spare his life. So Satan went out from the presence of Yahweh and struck Job with painful sores from the sole of his foot to his head. He took for himself a potsherd to scrape himself with, and he sat among the ashes. Then his wife said to him, "Do you still maintain your integrity? Renounce God and die." But he said to her, "You speak as one of the foolish women would speak. What? Shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil?" And all this Job didn't sin with his lips. Now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that had come on him, they each came from his own place: Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. And they made an appointment together to come to sympathize with him and to comfort him. When they lifted up their eyes from a distance and didn't recognize him, they raised their voices and wept, and they each tore his robe and sprinkled dust on their heads toward the sky. So they sat down with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his grief was very great. Job chapter 3. After this Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. Job answered, "Let the day perish in which I was born, the night which said, there is a boy conceived. Let that day be darkness. Don't let God from above seek for it, neither let the light shine on it. Let darkness and the shadow of death claim it for their own. Let a cloud dwell on it. Let all that makes the day black terrify it. As for that night, let thick darkness seize on it. Let it not rejoice among the days of the year. Let it not come into the number of the months. Behold, let that night be barren. Let no joyful voice come therein. Let them curse it who curse the day, who are ready to rouse up Leviathan. Let the stars of its twilight be dark. Let it look for light, but have none, neither let it see the eyelids of the morning. Because it didn't shut up the doors of my mother's womb, nor did it hide trouble from my eyes. Why didn't I die from the womb? Why didn't I give up the spirit when my mother bore me? Why did the knees receive me? Or why the breast that I should nurse? For now I should have lain down and been quiet. I should have slept, then I would have been at rest, with kings and counselors of the earth, who built up waste places for themselves, or with princes who had gold, who filled their houses with silver, or as a hidden untimely birth I had not been, as infants who never saw light. There the wicked cease from troubling, there the weary are at rest, there the prisoners are at ease together. They don't hear the voice of the taskmaster, the small and the great are there. The servant is free from his master. Why is life given to him who is in misery, life to the bitter in soul? Who long for death, but it doesn't come, and dig for it more than for hidden treasures, who rejoice exceedingly and are glad when they can find the grave. Why is life given to a man whose way is hidden, whom God has hedged in? For my sighing comes before I eat, my groanings are poured out like water. For the thing which I fear comes on me, that which I am afraid of comes to me. I am not at ease, neither am I quiet, neither do I have rest, but trouble comes. Chapter 4. Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered, "If someone ventures to talk with you, will you be grieved? Who can withhold himself from speaking? Behold, you have instructed many, you have strengthened the weak hands. Your words have supported him who was falling, you have made the feeble knees firm. But now it has come to you, and you faint. It touches you, and you are troubled. Isn't your piety your confidence? Isn't the integrity of your ways your hope? Remember now, whoever perished, being innocent, or were with the upright cut off. According to what I have seen, those who plow iniquity and sow trouble reap the same. By the breath of God they perish. By the blast of his anger are they consumed. The roaring of the lion and the voice of the fierce lion, the teeth of the young lions, are broken. The old lion perishes for lack of prey. The cubs of the lioness are scattered abroad. Now a thing was secretly brought to me. My ear received a whisper of it. In thoughts from the visions of the night, when deep sleep falls on men. Fear came on me, and trembling, which made all my bones shake. Then a spirit passed before my face. The hair of my flesh stood up. It stood still, but I couldn't discern its appearance. A form was before my eyes. Silence, then I heard a voice, saying, "Shall mortal man be more just than God? Shall a man be more pure than his Maker? Behold, he puts no trust in his servants. He charges his angels with error. How much more those who dwell in houses of clay, whose foundation is in the dust, who are crushed before the moth. Between morning and evening they are destroyed. They perish forever without any regarding it. Isn't their tent cord plucked up within them? They die, and that without wisdom.